Hey gang, it is April 1st, as in April Fool's Day, and as you may or may not know, every year on my blog I like to do a post on April 1st on something, a little bit silly, a little bit offbeat. I mean, this isn't going to be like a joke video, a gag video, I'm not going to tell you some kind of crazy made-up story about a record that doesn't exist, like Chuck D and Vanilla Ice doing a collaboration 10 years after Ice Ice Baby was a thing, or Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd collaborating to make a record or something. No crazy, silly rap stories like that. This is some real stuff that is also still kind of crazy and silly. So I'm talking about now today was, you can probably predict from behind me here, we've got Bobby, Jimmy, and the Critters, a very real and actually long-lasting hip-hop group. This is only a few of their records up I've got behind me. If you don't know, if you're not familiar, Bobby Jimmy is really essentially the Weird Al of hip-hop, in the sense that not all of his songs are joke or silly songs, but most of them are parody songs. He's from the West Coast, California. His real name is Russ Parr, and he's actually a radio DJ. He was even before he was Bobby Jimmy, his alias, and continues to be long after the Bobby Jimmy thing, although, like I said, it lasted a pretty long time. He actually put out one record under his own name, but then he start doing silly comedy records with kind of a crazy voice, which you'll hear. And well, I guess I'll just sort of start taking you through them because I've got them all. So we start here. Ugly Knuckle Butt is his very first album. Fresh Guys is one of his early 12-inch singles. That's Roaches, the beginning, his second album. Bobby Jimmy and the Critters, Roaches single. That's Hair Weave, a later single, is pretty big from him on Priority Records. He was on McCullough Records most of the time, which was a pretty long-lasting, big but slightly underground West Coast label. They had just about everybody back in the days, and by back in the days I mean like the late 80s primarily. They had everything from like 2 Live Crew to Ice Cube and the CIA to NWA early stuff, just so much stuff. Digital Underground, like almost everybody from the West Coast was coming out of McCullough Records, and absolutely so was Bobby Jimmy. So that was that couple singles there. But like I said, I got them all, so I can just kind of take you through them. We got Big Butt, Bag, Bobby Jimmy Jam. We got Gotta Potty, which is a parody of Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh, Lottie Dottie. So that's what I mean. That's what most of his songs are, kind of stuff like that. Like if when Rodney and Joe Cooley had a big single with Everlasting Bass, he did a song called Overlapping Waist. So we've got New York Rapper, which is sort of a big posse cut of impressions, as in Bobby Jimmy does all the voices, but it's as if he's got every big New York rapper on the record. He even did a sequel to that later on. Here, Snake, Bobby Jimmy, You a Fool. What else we got here? One Glove. It's in a parody of Houdini's One Love, of course. Some are more obvious from the titles than others. Milkshake. Lot of Children, which is a parody of Top Billin'. I think I actually did a blog about that one because it's one of the rare singles that's not on one of his albums. He was briefly on Ruthless Records. Here it is. And then Rap Dirty, his last 12-inch single, but not his last record. Hip Hop Prankster there on CD. That's when he signed to Priority Records, when it was sort of the peak of his career. Then here on cassette, we've got Back and Proud, one of his earlier albums. We've got the Greatest Hits album by Bobby Jimmy and the Critters. Yes, he had one called Bobby Jimmy, You a Fool, just like named after that single I showed you earlier. And then finally, Erotic Psychotic, which was his very last thing, also on Priority Records. That was like 1991. And he started back in 1994. So that was a pretty long run, especially for an act that's really essentially a very silly, goofy joke act. But I went through all of that not to actually talk about a Bobby Jimmy record, but just to get you up to speed to talk to you about a much lesser known, more obscure record by the Critters, as in just the Critters, not Bobby Jimmy, where he's got some, sort of obscure background guys. You don't even really know who the Critters are or what they do on his records. Here is their album, although it does say with Bobby Jimmy because his voice is heard very briefly. The check is in the mail. This is the Critters, essentially without Bobby Jimmy. Although, like I say, technically he's on there. So this is relatively early in the Bobby Jimmy and the Critters run, 1985. Although he'd already done a whole bunch of singles before then, even an album before then. Like I said, but as you've just seen, Bobby Jimmy and the Critters did a whole lot of stuff. So they were coming out pretty fast and furious. So 1985, very early, but still several things before it. And like I said, Bobby Jimmy does not rap on this thing at all. It's just the Critters. And actually what's interesting is the Critters have a couple of pretty famous members, most notably, and most disappointingly the one who does not rap on here, is Arabian Prince, as in of NWA. he doesn't rap on here or any other Bobby Jimmy and the Critters record ever, really. But he did produce a lot of their early stuff. He was known... Basically, he was much bigger producer than he was a rapper, although he put out several albums, most of which, of course, he produced all his own stuff, too. But he was like a big West Coast producer, and he did lots of stuff in collaboration with Dr. Dre and Yella in the early days, and that's why he was a member of NWA in their early days, with songs like Panic Zone and Something to Dance To. Those are really more Arabian Prince focused NWA songs. But anyway, so he produced a lot of the early Bobby Jimmy stuff too. But like I say, disappointingly, he does not rap on here. But who does rap on here is pretty much the other famous member of the Critters, General Jeff. If you don't recognize the name General Jeff, maybe you recognize the name Rodney O and Joe Cooley? Because if you don't recognize the name Rodney O and Joe Cooley, you really should just, get up on your West Coast hip-hop history. But so General Jeff is actually the third member of Rodney O and Joe Cooley, which is always really strange that Rodney O and Joe Cooley sounds like it should be a 2-member group, but it's a 3-member group. Through almost all their albums, at least all their early stuff, the very first album, when they signed to Nasty Mix, when they signed to Atlantic, it was always 3 guys, General Jeff getting a really lack of credit, which actually ties in very interestingly to this record right here. So as you can see, the song is called The Check Is in the Mail in a very green picture cover. And it's all about basically the Critters not getting any credit. So each one takes a rap verse saying they're fed up with Bobby Jimmy, they're quitting the group, they'd never get any credit. So, and of course, in a way, this is really their opportunity to shine by each member getting the chance to have a rap verse, as I say, except for Arabian Prince. But you've got Jam and Gemini, Davey D, not that Davey D, there's another Davey D who's in the Critters, Bo, and General Jeff does the last verse. So those 4 guys handle this record. Each one gets a verse. It's about a 5-minute song. The verses are pretty short, so the beat basically just rides with very little other music for a pretty long time in between each verse. It does get a little tedious, a little stretched out. It really feels like maybe an element of the record is missing or something, but I don't believe that's technically true. I don't think it is. It just sort of feels that way. It feels a little unfinished. I mean, granted, it's 1985, so you expect a little bit more stripped-down hip-hop instrumentation, but even so, they really just kind of let the beat go much longer than you feel like they should. Apart from that one criticism, though, it is a fun record. The verses are endearing. The beat, for a 1985 simple kind of thing, does sound pretty dope. It's a nice kind of program beat with some nice strong hits to it and some kind of cool subtle keyboards in the background. And you finally actually get to hear the other Critters rap, which you never do, except for General Jeff is on Overlapping Ways. But basically, they never got to rap on the Critters albums, and they all get to shine here, so that's pretty cool. You got 2 versions, not including the instrumental, which is also on here. The radio version and the dance version. Instrumentally, they're exactly the same. Time-wise, they're exactly the same. They just blow a whistle over it when he says, "I don't get no motherfucking credit." So that's what the big difference is. But there's a big kind of surprise ending only on the dance version where the Critters, or maybe even Bobby Jimmy, no, it's definitely the Critters, they do a Mick Jagger impression, sort of, I think an intentionally bad Mick Jagger impression, doing that Rolling Stone song, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." They kind of sing some of that chorus, and that's how they kind of end their record in kind of a weird, goofy, silly thing. But it's the Critters, what do you expect? So yeah, of course I'm going to let you hear it. This is the only song on here. Like I say, it's pretty much the only Bobby Jimmy song, except for the other one I showed you, that's not actually on any of his albums, including the Greatest Hits album. So it's a lot lesser known. Pretty obscure. It's not one that Macola features on a lot of their compilations. They like to do tons and tons of compilation albums where they just kind of re-release the same songs over and over again in slightly different order and sequences. I think actually it is on one version. They play the radio version on one compilation. But basically, this is pretty rare, pretty forgotten, especially since if you're looking for Bobby Jimmy records, you're not looking under a C usually. So the Critters, mostly without Bobby Jimmy, 1985 Macola Records, The Check Is in the Mail.
will regret. I don't take no credit. Check in the mail. The check is in the mail.
So yeah, that's it for me. Just thought I'd give you sort of a lighter side of hip-hop history today, April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day. I don't even think that's really the expression you say, but whatever. Thanks for watching.